Hey everyone, it's the Friday after Thanksgiving here, and I was able to fill a Minnesota archery tag on November 19th, so a week after the final day of the Minnesota gun season. And this is a property that is like a lot of properties in Minnesota and, areas, states that have, pretty high hunting pressure and stuff, where this property gets hit hard during the gun season. There's a lot of guys who hunt it. The neighboring properties all get hunted hard and everything like that. So when I'm trying to fill a bow tag afterwards, I really have to focus on security cover. And I just wanted to, I wasn't able to get the actual shot on camera. This is my first year trying to record my hunts and everything like that with actually in the tree and everything. I ended up forgetting my base unit that attaches my camera arm in a different tree within a bedding area. It's the bedding area that I ended up shooting this deer in on the 19th. I didn't want to go back in there once I realized I was missing it, and not for fear that I would blow the area up and stuff before I could hunt it on the 19th. So, but at the end of the video, I will break down some extra keys to the hunt and things like that. And I'm going to show you a clip too, of how a buck reacted and was on his feet after I shot this deer. It's an 8-pointer. I think it's either, I'm questioning whether it's a 2.5 or a 3.5-year-old that ended up coming through. Has a little bit of a malformed antler on one side of its rack, but pretty decent body deer and everything. And you'll see when I show that clip how he is moving freely within this little opening within the bedding area. But that's because he and all the deer that morning were on their feet and felt fine about moving within that area despite the pressure that had been on the property, because I was within that thick security cover. And they knew that any kind of situation arises where a predator, anything like that comes up that spooks them, they were within 1 or 2 bounds of being able to disappear into security cover. And over, I've found over the years that is so key to when you're hunting properties like this, on public or shared private properties where that get a lot of pressure. That's where deer are going to be comfortable on their feet late into the season. So even if I was going muzzleloader hunting tomorrow, it's a muzzleloader opener in Minnesota, I believe, tomorrow. I know it's tempting to want to be overlooking these wide open areas with a gun in your hand, because you can see a lot. But I would still, especially on morning hunts, I would still focus my attention on trying to get within these bedding areas. So I thought, I've got years and years experience of hunting bedding areas, and I thought I would just touch a little bit on the key things I'm looking for, because I think this hunt in Minnesota is a perfect example of how it can pay off. Number one is going to be, I'm not hunting these areas, obviously, unless the wind is going to work for it. In this situation, I'm looking for the perfect tree that's going to allow me to get away with what I need to with the wind, while allowing the deer to feel like they kind of know, or feel like the wind is in their advantage too. So in this situation, I was able to come in well before first light on the morning of November 19th, cross a river, just skip across the rocks on the river, and the tree is directly off the bank. I come in, and there's about a little 3-4 foot drop off that I just have to pull myself up and over. And that tree that I got up into that day is within 5 feet. And it's such a thick tree that they really can't get behind me downwind. So once those winds picked up at about 9 o'clock to about 10-12 miles an hour, I went from calm conditions where I was dealing with some wind swirl. I had a doe bust me, and I was nervous about it because I deal with wind swirl down here like crazy, because these are bottom areas. I've got high ground, ridge systems, and that lead up to high ground fields, ag fields, and down low is where the thick security cover is along the river. And this is where the big bucks live. And so this is where I need to try to get in with them to shoot them with my bow. But to do this, I need to be in situations where I can be just off that riverbank and my scent is going to blow across the river. And so I slipped into the tree, I climb up, and I'm within 5 feet of that bank, and I got up into the tree. And at 9 o'clock, once those day winds started picking up to about 10-12 miles an hour, my wind started consistently moving across the river. that is a huge key in being able to effectively hunt these areas. This spot is no different than a lot of areas where in the middle of this block of timber, there is great sign. Every year there's scrapes in there, there's rubs in there, some of the biggest rubs I find on the property. And it is so tempting, if you're kind of new to hunting areas like this, to want to dive into those spots right in the middle of that block of timber and hunt over that terrain or hunt over that sign. I did it for the first, years ago. I used to do that frequently, and just time after time, you'd see situations where I would get in there, I would try to hunt it, but in daylight, those deer were getting downwind of me. They were traveling those edges where they can smell as much of that habitat as possible by taking that edge that is downwind of all that cover. And so I see that over and over and over again, especially as we get into this time of year, late November, early December, when they've been pressured a lot now. Deer want to be able to cover their bases as much as they can with their nose, for safety reasons, for finding does. It just makes so much sense for them to use those edges, and not be necessarily in the middle of that habitat block, in this case, the middle of the timber where they're laying that sign down, a lot of it coming at night probably. So I was right on the edge, and once those day winds picked up, my wind was working perfect, blowing across the river, so I was safe, and these deer the woods basically came alive. I saw about, more than a dozen deer that day. I could have shot about 10 deer. Lots of little bucks. This is an area of the state where there's a lot of 1.5-year-old bucks, and does and fawns. Saw them, and eventually at about 10:30, I had this one come through, a buck that no questions asked. I saw him, and it was a no-doubter for me. I was thrilled to put my tag on him. So that would be my advice if I was still going out right now, would be think about where you can find security cover, because that's where they're going to feel safe on their feet in daylight. And there's a stereotype, I think, sometimes that if you hunt bedding areas, you're just blowing deer out. That's not how I'm hunting this stuff. I'm finding the bedding areas in the off season, scouting, things like that. And I am then thinking, okay, how can I get in here? How do I get in here safely? When can I hunt it? Maybe it's just a morning sit. Maybe I need to get in there an hour before first light. But that's not always the case. Even all 3 bucks I shot this year were in some way, shape, or form related to bedding, and understanding how the bedding laid out and when deer should be in there and how they're using it. A buck I shot in South Dakota was on an evening sit. It was 30-40 mile an hour winds. I used that wind as kind of cover to get in there quietly, get set up in my tree and everything like that. And then once those winds dropped down in the last 10-15 minutes of light, he came up from the bottom off his feet. I was right on the edge of a transition where it drops down into that bottom. He got up, he followed that edge along, and gave me a 10-yard shot with about 5-6 minutes of light left. So you can do it strategically too, to think about, I should say, even on afternoon sits. I just find that focusing on bedding has been so beneficial to me over the course of the years, because I don't own any of my own land. I can't manipulate the landscape. I can't plan food plots. I'm not doing any of that stuff. So I have to kind of, work with the hand I'm dealt with and everything. And it's how I've been able to find consistency over the years. And this year and this hunt, especially in Minnesota, I think is a good example of that. So let's jump into it. I'm going to show you the video clip here of that buck that came through first, after I shot my buck, and you'll see how much I'm able to get away with here, because he can't get downwind of me and my wind is blowing my scent across the river here. You'll see how close he gets right underneath me and looks up at me. So yeah, good luck to everybody still getting out here. My daughter and I were out last night for a drive. We went right at the last half an hour late, went out and ended up just in the middle of a field, saw a good buck kind of locked down with a doe and a young buck, and he ended up chasing that young buck around and everything. So that was kind of fun for my 7-year-old daughter to see and everything. So yeah, good luck to everybody getting out. Let's jump into the tree. Hey guys, it's November 18th, little after noon here probably. We just got up on a buck I shot in Minnesota here. It's a week after the gun season, and I came in this morning into a bedding area, into a spot that I prepped last week, and I wasn't able to get the shot on camera or anything like that. I actually forgot the base unit for my camera arm in a different tree, so I've been without that all weekend. So I thought I'd just talk a little bit about the keys to this hunt. Biggest thing is just adjusting. Essentially, last week I sat about 65, 70 yards from here over that direction, and I watched a buck follow the edge on a similar wind to what I have today over in this area. So on my way out last week, I went over, I prepped a spot, and I got it all ready to go. And then it was just off the riverbank, so I figured the wind would work pretty well and blow my scent across the river there. It was part of just an awesome morning. I saw a bunch of deer. I think there was a hot doe in here. I had a young 8-pointer, a 2.5-year-old 8-pointer come through that he pushed it right into me. He was at about 10 yards, and I decided not to, obviously decided not to take that deer. And then as the morning progressed and everything, I just started thinking that doe that he chased in must have been ready to breed pretty closely here, because I started seeing a lot of young bucks moving, things like that, some more doe activity. And then I had some does come from this direction. And then all of a sudden, as I was watching them, it was like this guy circled downwind of them coming from this direction. And all of a sudden I look up and he's standing right in my opening, basically. And so I had to stop him quartering toward a little bit. I've talked about it before. I'm shooting these single bevel broadheads. I put it right on that front shoulder. It actually hit this backside joint right here and penetrated through that. I gotta be careful as when we got him and stuff, because this is actually the broadhead penetrated through that bone. Took out his heart, and he went about 35 yards and was dead in about 5 seconds. So basically just the biggest keys this whole season has been about me. I scouted as hard as I've ever scouted this off season. I've hunted as hard as I have basically entered the season this year. And I think it's just a testament to, I just got back from North and South Dakota where I was able to fill tags. To shoot a buck in Minnesota here on November 18th in this spot is something that I've been playing musical chairs, basically trying to find a tree in this spot that works with the wind, because you get so much wind swirl in here. But this is where they live, and this is where I have to try to get with them when I'm bow hunting, because they just are not up on those safe zones in the top and stuff where that wind is better. So I feel like I've been just kind of pounding my head against a wall the last few years trying to find a tree that works in here. First sit in this tree ever, so hopefully I found it. So really excited to get my tag on this deer and everything, and basically finish off my season here. So yeah, good luck to everybody who's still getting out. Just kind of show you the setup here, guys. So you can see how good of a bedding area this is. You got a mix of some conifers. There's a lot of oaks over in there. Nice brushy cover over in here. And here's the opening. There's about 3 trails that meet up through this opening here. And behind me is how I get in with the river. Just cross those rocks right there coming through, and I'm able to just jump up into the tree. And yeah, the wind swirl here this morning was actually pretty tough as well, until those day winds started picking up. Once it got to about 9:30 or so, and the winds started becoming a little more consistent at like 12 to around 10 to 12 miles an hour, that's when deer started not being able to smell me. I actually got busted by a doe early in the morning. There was another young buck that came through that was pretty nervous. And then all of a sudden, as the day progressed, it ended up working a lot better once those winds became consistent. So those does came through right in here. They stopped about right there. And all of a sudden I looked up and he was standing right here. And he came and I wanted to stop him before he got to this stuff. So I stopped him quartering toward kind of right before that, and you know, put it forward there and was able to take out the heart and everything. And he didn't go far at all. So this is kind of what a setup is going to look like for me frequently, but especially a week after gun season in Minnesota, where that pressure has pushed them into really thick cover more than likely. I knew I wanted to be somewhere that was secluded, where they had a lot of security cover and everything. So